Presence of a villain in the building, and ain't nobody found a way to kill him. You got a heart made of blades in his chest, strapped with the vest. So come up on your tech to the test. Don't open up your mouth for a sec. Homie, you ain't saying shit that affects the love and respect I have for the next.
If you're trying to get vexed, you can come and get wrecked by the best. Fuck silence!
The Disciples audio animation by Stereo Stages.
Most people took to calling them gods. I call them what they really are. Monsters. The first one the world learned about was in Peru. An illegal logging operation was ravaging the Amazon jungle. There was little the underfunded and poorly equipped local authorities could do about it. Someone tweeted photos of the deforestation, and it caught on like wildfire. Pretty soon, it became world news. Naive college students thought they were going to fight the good fight. They flooded into Peru to try and halt the logging operation. There were more cameras in that area than I'm sure have ever been in the Amazon jungle. This is how the world collectively learned about the gods. How irrefutable proof of the abominations spread like a disease. In the dead of night, 30 of the college students chained themselves together, wrapping the chains through and around the heavy machinery by their limbs and torsos. It looked as if a metal spider had come and webbed up the entire operation. The following morning, the loggers came to discover the group of students blocking use of their equipment and chanting in unison. These men were not blue-collar workers. Many were gang-affiliated and connected to operations just like this all over the Amazon. Some speculated the lumber was being used to smuggle drugs. Refusing to budge, the stubborn kids remained chained to the machinery for hours as the world watched. Reporters and dozens of onlookers filmed and streamed the event. Eventually, Cara Cortada showed up, the alleged leader of the gang heading this operation. Tall, muscular, dark-skinned, and with a large scar running down the left side of his face where a black stone filled the socket of a missing eye. The man had a presence that was undeniable. He looked upon the interfering student, his face twisted with disdain.
¿Por qué no estás trabajando?
Why are you not working? He bellowed at his men. They looked between him and the now silent, chained-up students, confused as the answer appeared obvious. The crowd, too, was silent. Cara Cortada strode to the nearest of his men and asked him the question again. Bumbling over his words, the man pointed at the students, his eyes wide with fear, hands trembling. Cara Cortada grabbed the back of the man's neck with one hand and with the other pulled the long knife from his belt. He brought it under the man's chin and slowly pushed it up through the jaw and into his skull. Twitching and gurgling, the man coughed blood onto his killer's face. Their gaze locked as he commanded the rest of his men.
Volver al trabajo!
Get back to work. Without wasting another second, the loggers rushed to the seats of their machinery. Until now, the crowd and students had been in a state of shock silence. I doubt any one of them had ever seen a man die, let alone a close-up and brutal, cold-blooded murder. But as the machines and equipment began whirring to life, the screaming started. Some fumbled with the locks, others pulled futilely against their chains. People yelled and cried for the men to stop. As the machinery began to drive away in different directions, the chains pulled against the flesh of 30 poor souls. Sick, wet cracking. That's what I can never forget from watching that stream. It was live. Practically the whole world watched as news of it spread. Chests caved in, arms pulled off, screams turned to dying gurgles by chains deforming and decapitating. The machines snapped chains and bodies alike while they worked as if nothing were happening. Metal tracks ran over the mess of limbs and torsos carelessly, turning the ground into a red, muddy mess. Cara Cortada pulled a cigar from his vest, lighting it and puffing with a wry grin. He turned towards the onlookers and cameras as if noticing them for the first time. Putting his hand up, he waved in an exaggerated, neighborly fashion. Then, he pulled a silver revolver and started taking pop shots at the crowd, laughing like a maniac. People ran, screaming, trampling each other. Heavy machinery zipped about. Cut trees fell and crashed to the ground. Dismembered students, still alive, clawed at the ground, moaning and begging for help. It was pure chaos. Most people watching from the comfort of their living rooms on laptops and TVs hadn't even imagined anything like it. But this was only the catalyst. From a pool of bloody, fleshy pulp started a rumble. The rumble turned into a bubbling like a boiling pot. With an ear-splitting crack that drowned out the machinery, screaming and gunshots, the bubbling, bloody pit stopped moving, as did every living soul. All eyes were fixed on that spot. The viewership numbers soared to world records. A clawed hand began to slowly rise from the pit of gore, dripping blood, revealing 3 bone-white digits, each the size of a Bowie knife. It continued rising up, slowly revealing exposed muscle and sinew, hulking shoulders showing every unnaturally placed tissue strand. When the head emerged from the pit of gore, most everyone realized something was more than wrong in an existential way. Bone intertwined with viney tendon. It looked almost like a gorilla-sized bird skull with the toothy mouth of a feral wolf. The massive body continued to rise, frozen in the pose of a swimmer struggling to get above the surface for a panicked breath of air. A bulky chest that looked as if it could break every weightlifting record known to man tapered down to an impossibly thin waist, maybe 10 inches around at most. Red exposed muscle shined in the sunlight, wet and sticky. Something so alien, people couldn't even manage to run. The creature's body fully rose from the pit to reveal powerful legs that looked to be made of muscle, cut at sharp angles, ending in bone-claw feet that closed like talons. That still moment, where fear and fascination held the world's breath, lasted what seemed like forever. Then, the thing came to life. From deep within the bone eye sockets, a green glow burned with increasing intensity. The skinless abomination flexed and shuddered, moving its head around to take in every inch of its surroundings. It was almost childlike in that one instant. A woman's scream broke the silence. The monster let out a roar, copying her scream with an added deep demonic layer. People started running, screaming, and scrambling to get away. Bending over almost in pain, the thing wrapped its clawed arms around its midsection, roaring and howling. From its back, 2 long appendages burst through the bone and thick muscle, more than twice its body length. They resembled giant spider legs made of bone with at least 10 visible points of articulation. Burying into the ground, the 2 skeletal wings lifted the creature. It hung, suspended, and stretched out its body, flexing claws and muscle, Then a hyperfocus took over. Its head moved back and forth like someone having a seizure. But it wasn't shaking. It was tracking each and every human in the vicinity in mere seconds. The appendages on its back folded, dropping the creature back to the ground. As soon as its feet touched the earth, it bounded forward, covering 50 feet in a mere stride. Catching a screaming woman by the head, it took another bound, dragging the woman with it, breaking her neck by the sheer force of its speed. Without missing a step, the creature spun and flung the body of the woman at one of the cameramen still filming from afar. That stream cut out as two lifeless bodies scattered through the trees in pieces. Viewers frantically turned to other streams that were still live. The jungle had turned to chaos once more. Screaming and roaring filled speakers. The staccato of gunfire echoed in the background as armed gang members tried to kill the creature. Almost worth a laugh. Those fools thinking they could kill a god with an AK-47. Well, everyone calls them gods, anyways. And so far, not one has been killed. Maybe those things are gods. Look and act more like demons to me, but what do I know? Well, I know it danced between the trees like wind. I watched it kill men like they were ants. Bullets sank into it with meaty thuds, but otherwise had no effect. In and out of the cameras, it raced with impossible speed, cutting down fleeing humans with claws and those skeletal wings. Spinning, cutting, tearing, bounding, disappearing into the brush like a shadow and reappearing next to another victim. It was a bloodbath, a complete massacre. That thing tore through those people like a hot knife through butter. One by one, the streams cut out as those operating them were brutally eviscerated. One stream remained, a news camera left abandoned on a tripod. Cara Cortada clutched at the bloody stumps of his missing legs, roaring at the thing towering over him that might as well be a god. He fired his revolver with no effect until it clicked harmlessly, the cylinder full of only spent casings. The newly arisen creature used its skeletal wing appendages to push itself into the air over the legless man. He shouted something unintelligible, and the creature dropped onto him, smashing not only the man to a bloody pulp, but a 5-meter crater into the ground. Roaring in victory, something was again happening to it as it braced itself once more. Cracking of bone could be heard as an enormous, arm-size horn grew from the monster's skull. It was somehow evolving, becoming a better killer, if that were even possible. With the blink of an eye, it bounded forward and slashed the camera, sending the world's view of the carnage to black. This one, people took to calling the forest god. And that was its chosen domain. For a while, it stayed within the borders of the Amazon jungle, hunting and killing any humans foolish enough to wander within. This included indigenous tribes. The forest god did not distinguish between humans. Any within the rainforest were its enemies. It was only a matter of months before the UN decided to take action against the forest god. Mobile infantry from several countries were sent in, led by tanks, choppers, and fighter jets. That battle lasted hardly more than an hour before all that was left was smoking metal and bloody pieces of flesh. Targeted missile strikes were the next failed idea. All these did were create barren patches of burnt forest, and succeeded only in triggering the forest god's evolution once again. It gained the ability to fly. The skeletal wings were physically unchanged, but some unseen force propelled it through the air faster than the United States military's most advanced fighter jets. Any flying craft over the airspace of the Amazon was ripped apart mid-air. Countless military and passenger planes were shredded from the sky before drastic measures were taken. They nuked the fucking jungle. The world watched as fiery destruction swallowed the luscious green and left behind a cratered wasteland. A necessary sacrifice for the survival of mankind, were the words echoed by the mainstream media. They succeeded in stopping the forest god from prowling the Amazon jungle. Now, it watches the woods. All of them, seemingly everywhere at once. Men, women, and children are no longer allowed in the forests. They are the god's domain now. And it was only the first.
Well, hey there. Yeah, you guessed it. It's your boy, the Disciple. Well, what do you think about that? The first of the gods. You know, I'm a bit of a god myself. Did you know that? Did you? A god to your mom. Oh, I bet you're thinking, hey there, Mr. Disciple, I don't like that. Well, guess what? Suck it. Yeah, that's right. And you know what? We don't even care what you suck, man. Just fucking suck it, alright? We don't judge here.